Chapter 1. Blips in the Silence. The Wolfhead Nebula stretched across the view screens in the archive hall. A storm of green and black clouds, its ragged edges shaped like the muzzle of some celestial beast. Long ago, sailors had named it for the wolf that howled against the void. Now it served as the graveyard for countless signals. At the center of the storm burned the star itself. Not white, not yellow, green. Its light did not simply illuminate the nebula. It seemed to stain it. Veins of emerald radiation threading the gas like living pigment. Instruments struggled to classify the emissions. The wavelengths slid between known values, flickering through the spectrum as if refusing to settle. A Racine observer once described it in a sealed paper as stellar chromatic bleed. No one outside the house had ever been meant to read those words. Alaric Dane bent over his console, eyes red from sleepless hours. Most of what passed through his node was noise. Old drift echoes, shimmer static, ghost fleets repeating their last transmissions. But the Wolfhead was different. Its depths swallowed signals whole, spitting them back jagged and broken. This time, though, the break had geometry. Angular, deliberate, wrong. Racine theory held that certain stellar environments could generate what they called echochromes, colors that were not merely wavelengths but memory-bearing pigments formed where matter, shimmer, and consciousness intersected. Most of the Concord dismissed the theory as Mnemosyne mysticism, but hypermatter stars complicated the argument. Their emissions did not behave like normal radiation. Sensors recorded spectral anomalies that could not be mapped to the prime spectrum at all. Racine analysts had quietly suggested the possibility no one wished to confirm. The Wolfhead might not merely contain echochromes, it might be producing them. The lines froze his system, data collapsing into silence. Then, when his screen cleared, whole records were missing. Days of logs, gone as if unwritten. Protocol bound him. He packaged the anomaly in code-sealed format and sent it upward, tagged for Mnemosyne Technomagi review. The cloistered interpreters who claimed to hear the lattice itself would either confirm or deny. Their answer came almost before he could draw breath. Inconclusive, no anomaly detected. The glyph seal meant more than denial. It meant the anomaly had been recognized. Within the hidden archives of Mnemosyne, the Wolfhead Nebula carried a forbidden annotation. Green hypermatter source, observation class Omega. Such stars were known to distort spectral constants. More troubling, they occasionally produced unstable chromatic phenomena, fragments of the echochrome spectrum not catalogued in the Concord's prime index. To acknowledge that possibility publicly would mean admitting the Concord had lost control of something fundamental. So the record was closed. The glyph seal closed the matter. To contradict Mnemosyne was to risk censure, exile, erasure. But Alaric knew. The denial was too swift, too certain. They had seen it too, and chosen silence. He leaned back, hand gripping the edge of his console, whispering the words he dared not record. It is there, in the Wolfhead, whatever it is. Chapter 2. Council of Silence. The chamber of the Lumen Council was carved from polished stone, veined with auric trim, banners of the Concord descending from high beams like frozen fire. To stand beneath it was to feel judged by the weight of centuries. Alaric Dane stood at the base of the dais, his data slates clasped against his chest. He was a man out of place, pale from archive lamps, dressed not in black and gold, but in the gray of the analyst corps. Above him, 5 lords of the Concord sat arrayed, their faces shadowed by the vast sigils overhead. "State your claim," intoned the presiding lord. His voice was iron wrapped in velvet, the tone of one accustomed to obedience. Alaric cleared his throat. "In the Wolfhead Nebula, I charted resonance collapses inconsistent with natural drift bleed. Angular, deliberate. Logs were erased during analysis. Whole days of record, gone." A murmur rippled across the chamber. One lord raised a brow. "And what did Mnemosyne decree?" The technomagi returned inconclusive. The word hung like a verdict. The chamber stiffened. One of the younger lords leaned forward, eyes cold. "Then there is no anomaly. Mnemosyne does not err." Alaric felt his stomach twist. He had known this was coming, yet still he pressed. With respect, their denial was too swift. They saw it too. And if they will not act, then the Concord must. If something moves in the Wolfhead, the phalanx is vulnerable. "Enough!" The presiding lord's hand cut the air. "The phalanx of Rakeland is not yours to safeguard. It sails under banners far older and nobler than your node station. Do not soil its triumph with phantom charts. But the data is closed." The hammer voice of the Lord left no room for further speech. "Mnemosyne has spoken. The council abides." The silence that followed was heavier than the void. Alaric stood alone in it, feeling the weight of banners above, the gaze of the lords, the grinding of the machine. He bowed his head, the ritual submission, but his hands shook. As he turned to leave, he whispered to himself the words he dared not speak aloud. "It is real. Whatever it is real." Chapter 3. Depth Sounding. Day 3. Lattice 319, Cycle 221-0100. Wolfhead Sector. Outer Echo Layer. The hymns still lingered in the steel when the Nuln crossed the boundary. Drift space did not reveal itself in a single stroke. It unfolded. The green light of the Wolfhead Nebula bled away, colors draining as though memory itself were abandoning them. Outside the view screens, stars wavered, fractured, then vanished altogether, leaving only the soft churn of black and faint ghost-like motes. The ship groaned in reply, her hull plates flexing as though resisting the pressure of an invisible sea. "Sounding," came the call from the watch. 130 echoes. Depth steady." The commander stood at the prow of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the wavering dark. His presence was stone, and yet even he leaned forward slightly, as though listening to some voice only he could hear. The XO glanced at his instruments, lips tightening. "Currents unstable. Recommend holding depth." "Noted," the commander said without turning. "Make her 200. "Aye, Commander, 200. The crew obeyed, voices low, movements precise. Every order carried weight here, for drift space tolerated no error. To misstep was not to risk damage, but dissolution. At the edge of hearing, something like a sigh threaded through the hull. Some called it interference. Others said it was the ocean of silence pressing against them. But the sailors of the Nuln had another word for it. They called it the whisper. Some sailors believed the whisper came from drift space itself. Others blamed the ship. But among certain Mnemosyne scholars, another explanation circulated quietly through sealed Concord channels. Echochromes were said to carry memory. If the Wolfhead's hypermatter star truly produced them, then the nebula might not merely be emitting radiation. It might be emitting history. Eric Vayner felt it in his bones. A pressure that was not weight, a voice that was not sound. He tried to keep his face set, his body still. The commander's eye flicked toward him once, and he remembered the earlier warning. Keep your priorities straight, your mission, and your kin. The watch reported again. Sounding 200 echoes, holding. The commander gave a single nod. Good, let her drift. And so the ship sailed deeper into the Black Sea beneath the stars, guided not by light, but by resonance, and by faith. The green fire of the wolf head ebbed away until it was only a memory, a smear at the edge of thought. Few among the Concord spoke of the truth behind that green fire. At the heart of the wolf head burned a rarity whispered only in the cloisters of Mnemosyne and the sealed ledgers of House Rosine. A hypermatter star. Green hypermatter stars were almost unknown in the living lattice. Their fusion was not merely stellar, but lattice reactive, bleeding energy into drift space itself. Where ordinary stars burned hydrogen and gravity, hypermatter stars burned the deeper strata of reality, emitting spectral radiation that could stain the veil itself. The Wolfhead star was one of the only confirmed examples, which was why the Concord had long ago agreed not to speak of it. In its place came shadow, layered upon shadow, until color itself seemed banished. The vessel did not fly, nor did it fall. It slid, as though carried on unseen currents beneath the skin of creation. Around it, the void trembled. Shapes without form drifted at the edge of perception. Arcs of pale light that bent the wrong way, dark contours that dissolved when fixed upon. Some swore they saw wrecks there, whole fleets drifting in silence, forever descending. Others said there were no shapes at all, only the echo of their own fear returned to them. Inside, the air thickened, heavy with unseen weight. Even the hum of instruments seemed muffled, as though reluctant to intrude. Every sound became ritual. The clipped voices of officers, the strike of boots, the whisper of orders passed. And still the ship slid deeper. In drift space, distance could not be measured in charts or leagues, only in depth. Soundings marked it. Echoes returned from horizons that had no substance, each one carrying the tremor of something vast pressing back. 250 echoes, holding steady. The crew exhaled as one, though none had spoken. The descent slowed, then steadied. Out beyond the glass, a current stirred. Faint, shimmering, neither wind nor water, yet bearing the same weight. It curled along unseen contours and slipped past the vessel, carrying with it whispers like distant voices. Some of the younger sailors shifted, faces pale, for the sound was not sound at all, but thought bent by silence. Still, the vessel held its course, gliding on as though it belonged here, as though it had been wrought for this place. No starlight guided her, no map marked her path. She moved beneath all of it, beneath stars, beneath memory, beneath even the reach of language. Drift space closed around her like a black ocean, endless, fathomless, and alive. Chapter 4. The Long Mess. Day 4. Lattice 321, Cycle 221, 0900. Wolfhead Sector. Outer Echo Layer. The mess was lit low, shadows pooling under the long steel tables. Drift space pressed in at the edges of the hull, muting the lights until every glow seemed uncertain. Men and women ate quickly, quietly, their voices hushed as though unwilling to stir the whisper outside. At the corner table, though, the talk rose louder. "I'm telling you," Officer Calth remarked, stabbing at his plate with a fork. "Fanatics make history. Always have. Doesn't matter if it's the Shatter, the Bleed Fronts, or now. It's always someone mad enough to drag everyone else with him." Varric snorted. "Fanatics get men killed. That's all." You want another bleed front? Fine. Follow a fanatic. You think Reichland rose again on moderation? Kauth leaned forward, eyes sharp. Patience didn't build the phalanx. Discipline didn't raise those banners. No, obsession did. Will so absolute it bent memory itself. Call it fanaticism if you like, but it carved this fleet out of ruin. Vaynor, sitting between them, kept his voice level. And what of the ones who unmade worlds? Were they visionaries too? Or just madmen with the right fleet? The table went quiet a moment. Even the hum of the air system seemed louder. Kauth shrugged, but his voice was lower now. Sometimes it's the same thing. The man who burns a world and the man who saves one are often built from the same fire. The commander's voice came then, unexpected, cutting through the hush like a blade. He had been at the far end of the table, silent until now. His eyes glinted in the dim light. You know what that makes us? No one answered. The only power to have ever erased a people with fracture fire. Entire vaults turned to ash. Concord did that. We wrote that into history. His words were flat, without pride or shame, only weight. That makes us a target for every silence that ever dreamed of returning the favor. Varric stiffened. With respect, Commander, we dropped fracture fire because we had no choice. Choice? The commander gave a short laugh, like iron striking stone. Choice is a luxury. Orders are what we had. He leaned forward now, voice low, every syllable a hammer. The techno-magi gave me command. They gave me a checklist, a target, and a key to turn. That was all I had to know. When, not why. The table was silent again. Men looked down at their plates, at the steel, at anything but him. Finally, Vaynor spoke, his tone careful but steady. And yet, I would hope they'd want us all to know why, sir. Otherwise, war becomes nothing but a machine eating itself. The commander's eyes lingered on him. Naval War College taught you that? No, sir. Drift taught me. If you listen too long to the whisper, it says the same thing every time. And what's that, Mr. Vaynor? That the true enemy isn't the Thrylock, or the Shimmer, or even silence itself. His gaze didn't waver. The commander's knife tapped once against his cup, sharp in the quiet. Then he smiled, though it was thin as a scar. He said dryly, voice carrying just enough for the mess to hear. Drift Archivist class will not tell us exactly who the real enemy is. Mr. Eric Vaynor will. Laughter rippled, uneasy but welcome, easing the silence for a moment. Yet beneath it, in the marrow of every sailor present, the truth clung like drift space pressure. Out here, far from the banners of the phalanx, they all knew Vaynor might be right. The commander leaned forward, voice like a drawn blade. And what's that, Mr. Vaynor? His tone was even, his words steady. The enemy is war itself. A stillness fell across the table. Forks hung in midair. Somewhere down the mess line, a man cleared his throat, too loud in the hush. The commander's knife tapped once against his cup, sharp in the quiet. Then his smile came thin and sardonic. "Attention on deck," he said, voice pitched to carry. Drift Archivist class will now tell us exactly who the real enemy is. The mess erupted in uneasy laughter, a ripple of relief more than mirth. Men chuckled, women smirked. Someone clapped the table twice. It was the laughter of sailors who did not want to think too long about what had just been said. Vaynor allowed himself the faintest smile, but his eyes never left the commander's. And the commander, still tapping the rim of his cup with the edge of the knife, let the silence creep back in. Be careful, Mr. Vaynor. Philosophy makes fine reading, but a poor companion in the black. Out here, survival's the only scripture that matters. The laughter thinned, faltered, and died. The weight of drift space pressed close again, filling the room like an unseen tide. And beneath it all, the whisper seemed to coil tighter around the crew, as if listening for which of them still believed in Claw, and which would not dare.